go.
Okay, so projects. On the schedule page, you may have noticed some of those floating through. Let's see, I think week 3 is the first one. Yep, sampling introduction. I think week 6 is the next one. Yep, interpreting confidence. Week 8 is the bootstrapping, and week 10 is regression. So what projects are, and this is again is a consequence of where I am with the open source. Projects are, they're like small little not even chapters, they're like small little sections of a textbook that most normal intro stat books don't have for whatever reason. I don't know why they don't have them, but they don't have them. They're very, very useful ideas that, and again, I don't know for whatever reason they get left out. Or alternatively, half of yours are like that. The other 2 are topics that I think textbooks overdo. The first and last projects in your guys' class, introduction to sampling and regression, they tend to get overblown in an intro stat course. They tend to do too much talk about the sampling methods. I mean, you guys will take research methods classes. Some of you will take those, and you'll learn all that stuff in great depth. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to spend a week making you memorize a bunch of formulas or a bunch of definitions and then never really use those definitions again. Likewise, the regression project at the end is done via what's called hypothesis testing. Nobody does it that way outside of academic classrooms, so hence I don't do it that way either, but I had to rewrite a project to kind of get around that because I couldn't just use the stuff in your textbook in that respect. So those 2 projects are done to kind of bring those topics more in line with how statistics is actually done in the outside world. The middle 2 projects are just topics that tend to be ignored by textbooks. Bootstrapping is one of the most important. It's based off mathematical simulations, which again I'm huge on. So anyway, that's what projects are. They are already hyperlinked. If you want to get into the first one, you absolutely can right now if you wanted to. Let's take a look at one. Let's crack one open. So here's your sampling. A little document. So you can read through it. It's got a few definitions, a few things to talk about, some technology. And then as you scroll down, you eventually get to a point where you start seeing point values, 2 points, 3 points, 3 points, 2 points, 3 points, and so forth and so on. This one actually has an online component you'll have to go to as well. And this with the exception of the first 4 questions, it's a lot of writing. Why is this biased? Why could this question be misleading? Why could this? Why could that? Why could this? Why could that? So it's definitely some writing and some critical thinking, much like in 243, at least was with me and probably was with Don as well. So look for those point values. Those are what adds up to 25, and that's what your 25 points comes from in each of the 4 projects, which sums up to your 100-point total for the term. What's up, Chris?
Is that an actual project?
That's the very first one. Yeah, it's good. It's some good stuff. It's some good stuff. And I'm trying to keep them current. I mean, some of the stuff is a little bit dated. 2009 is getting a little bit old, but I mean, it's still current enough to be valid and interesting. Make sense? Exactly. That's the Monitoring the Future survey. Interesting until you look at it really carefully. You're like, ooh, wait a minute. There's a little bit of bias going on here, and your job is to find that bias in the study. It's not super obvious, but after you read through the project, you're like, oh, okay, I know what to look for now. So, yeah, not much math. Hardly any math. I think somewhere in here you take an average. I think that's it. But most of it is just being able to kind of reason through a study and realize where there might be holes in the study. Please, Mrs. Danielle.
Do you go online? Like, do you fill this out on paper and turn it in?
You do. Since I don't use Blackboard and I haven't gotten this down to electronic submissions yet, this is just take a piece of scrap paper and write down and hand that in. Or you can print it if you want to. By no means do you have to, but you can print it out if you want to as well, keep a hard copy. Just turn in the part with the points on it if you want to. It makes a lot more sense, especially because you're doing some writing, 1 or 2 sentences, to not try to squeeze it in the lines of the paper. It's just, otherwise I can't read it. And Emily, well, would be great, can't read it either. So scrap paper's fine. Scrap paper's fine. Cool? Please.
Where did we find this?
Oh, absolutely. It's back out session. Nope, not a problem. So, this is in week 3. At the very down at week 3, and there's one in week 6. There's one in week 8 and week 10. And I didn't mention this. Thank you for bringing this up. Lindsay and Danielle. Yeah, okay. When you turn quizzes in, they're done outside of class. They're due on the due date. Just wander in and make a pile before class starts. As you come in, drop your quizzes down. Same with projects. These are all posted for the next 10 weeks. All the projects are ready to go. You can get into any one of them at any time. But just when they're due, bring them in and drop them in hard copy up on the front. Except for the very last one, I lied to you. The very last one you'll email submit to me, because the entire thing is done in Excel, and it seemed kind of dumb to have to print that, because people tried to print it in the past and then don't print. You ever try to print anything in Excel and it comes out being like 9 pages long? Yeah, I got tired of having people have to wrestle with that. So that one you'll email, and everything else is just hard copy. So, and scrap paper is totally fine. Just make sure there's not a whole lot of coffee stolen. Fair enough? So there's 4 projects, 25 points a pop, that's 100 points there. You've got at least 10 quizzes at 10 points a pop, that's at least 100 points there, yay. The rest of the points come from exams. So, back up here, there they are right here. So I used to give, back in the day, I'd give 2 exams. A midterm and a final, because that's what all my profs did back in the day when I took, 20, 25 years ago, whatever it was. They give me a midterm, they give me a final, that was it. Nothing else was graded. And if you failed the midterm, sometimes they would return your midterm. I remember seeing classmates walk out in tears because they would get their midterms back with a drop slip stapled to it with already signed. And I vowed to myself when I started teaching math, I would never ever be that bastard. I vowed I would never be that guy. It was ridiculous. So this is the difference between a community college and a big research university like University of Delaware. I mean, there's 40,000 undergrads. They don't care. They don't care. You're a seat, and you're a butt in a seat.
I didn't get that.
It's why I teach here, because I like teaching. I want you guys to be successful. I'm not saying all schools are like that. I'm saying my school was like that, and it was awful, and it was a great learning experience for me. So I started adding more assessments. I added the quizzes, and then I added the projects. But then I still noticed there was a bunch of mathematical anxiety the day of an exam. So I took away the midterm final and made 3 exams that were 100 points versus 2 that were 150. And that was good. For a while, that was good. But then when other people started doing the same thing, because it was working pretty well, because people were still doing midterm final, but I was doing week 4, week 7, week 11. So mine weren't sinking in, which was perfect, because it was less stress for you guys. But then when they started doing the same thing, then you guys were like, well, no, I have exams, like 5 exams on the same day. So I decided to try something else, and you guys were one of the first recipients of this test last year, where half of the exam is now done in class and half of the exam is done out of class. So give me some, okay, I'm seeing nods. So Drew's nodding, he's saying, yeah, yay, nay, what do you think? Yay, positive, Rach, yay, positive? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot to agree with me, just...
No, I like the structure a lot because it was less stress on you in the course, in class. And then during the technical portion, you just had more time at your leisure to get it finished.
Yes, very, very good. Anybody want to add anything to that has been through the process of the half take home, half in class? What are your memories of it? What did you like, what did you not like?
Don't procrastinate.
Well, don't procrastinate. That's what's going across. Thank you, Chris. That goes across the board for anything, any class, any time, really. Describe the type of problems on the in-class versus the type of problems on the out-of-class, if you remember. How are they alike? How are they different?
The out of class was way more time consuming.
Because?
Way more time.
Because?
More data.
Well, sometimes large data sets for sure. That I didn't want you messing with your TI doing with. I didn't make you use Excel to do it.
There's a lot to think about and a lot to go over.
It is a lot more critical thinking. I try to keep the ones in class very, correct me if I'm wrong on this, friends, the ones in class very, very straightforward. For example, a typical question, here's 20 data points. Give me the average. Here's 20 data points, give me the median. I'm using a 243 example here. Here's 20 data points, give me the mode. But there's an in class, 5 points apiece. The out of class, here's the number of eggs my chickens laid over the first 4 months of the year. If someone asked you, on average, how many eggs do you get, which method of center would you use, and why would you use it? That's an example of like an out of class part where you have to sit down, think about what you're writing. Now, there's also not one correct answer necessarily for that question. And I remember the answers from that when they were all over the board. Some people said trimmed mean, some said average, some said median. As long as you justify your response, I love your response, because there isn't a black and white answer for what would you say when you ask how many eggs your chickens lay. Is that right? How many eggs chickens lay? So the important thing is, are you thinking about your answers? Are you thinking about the responses? Yes, they are more time consuming because I make you think and I make you write a lot more. I don't make you write a whole lot on the in-class portions. It's very, very computational, pretty straightforward. Hopefully minimizing anxiety, the whole point, while simultaneously measuring learning. They're not cumulative exams in the traditional sense. That is, the first exam in week 4 kind of goes from week 1 to week 4. The next exam goes 4 to 7, then 7 to 10. So they're not going back and grabbing previous information, except for the fact that we keep using the same words like average, standard deviation, margin of error. That doesn't go away. But we won't go back to topics to grab things. Fair enough? Please, Daniel.
Is the final the same format?
Yes, it's just a third exam. It's called a final, but it's final week. It's exam number 3 for me.
So that way you turn in the
You'll see. It's a great question. Great question, Danielle. Thank you. Let's go out to the schedule page. So here's what exam 1 looks like. Your in-class portion will be on Thursday of week 4, and you'll know well in advance what's going to be on that. Like a week in advance, I'll say, let's take this first exam up to blah. We might go further than that in class, say on Tuesday, but that won't be on the exam Thursday. You'll get the hang of this pretty quickly. Look at the next week. The next class meeting, you'll turn in the out-of-class part, and that thing will be hyperlinked probably by the beginning of week 4, so you'll have a week and a half to work on it. Does that kind of make sense? And this hopefully will offset some of what I heard over here, that the things take time. They do take time, but I also give you plenty of time to work on it. So, and that's where Chris comes in. Do not procrastinate. That's pretty important too. Don't wait till Monday night to knock it out, and all of a sudden the website won't load and Excel won't work, and your dog's vomiting in your shoes. And I got a lot of pets that vomit shoes. It's kind of pissing me off right now. But so you don't want to deal with that Monday night trying to get something done that's worth 50 points for towards 10% of your grade. Essentially, you don't want to deal with a cat vomiting and messing that up. They do, especially Willow. She gets nervous and pukes.
Does she just like go through your shoes?
I don't know. Sometimes she pukes so much just hits the shoes anyway. I wish I had an explanation.
Is she old?
She's 4 or 5. She's not old. She's just nervous.
She's just nervous.
She's adorable. She sleeps in her crooked leg every night. Wakes up purring. Birds and vomits. Birds and vomits. I don't know. Correlation to the birds and vomits. To answer Danielle's question on the third exam, it's down here in exam week. The out of class and in class will both be. You'll turn in the out of class when you come in to take the in class, and that thing will be posted 2 weeks in advance. So there's no delay on that one, but we'll take care of it for you, and it'll all sync up. And my friends that have me before, chip in. What am I missing as far as assessment goes? Am I covering the bases pretty well as far as?
I don't think you're missing anything.
Cassie, good?
Yeah,
As far as good. And anything you want to share for the good of the order? Or did we do it okay? These? It's 9:20, we don't care right now, just keep talking. So that's assessment. That's what I collect. I collect a bunch of stuff. I got the 3 in class, 3 out of class portion, that's 300 points, 4 projects, plus at least 10 quizzes. And I say at least 10 because you're going to have closer to 15. That's good. You've got all these assessments rolling in, all these points, almost all of which is done outside of class with help. Use the computer. Get online. Use databases. Use the Google, as my dad calls it. Get on. Use everything you can. Use every resource. It's not cheating. It's so funny. I have these discussions. You let people do stuff outside of class? I know they're not cheating. And I said, it's a definition. You're calling it cheating, I'm calling it collaboration. I trust that you guys are working together. And the work that I'm getting is supporting that. I get these, it takes me forever to grade. Kathy, you think it takes a lot of doing? Grading, it takes forever, and I love it, because I get 35 different results for some problems. That's fantastic. You're all thinking about this independently. I can tell some of you are working together, because you're getting similar type results, but I can also tell you're all chipping into the conversation. Hell yeah, keep that up. That's what we need in the workforce. We need people being able to play nice with others. Remember the thing you learn in kindergarten that we then beat out of you for the next 12 years of schooling? We're going to beat it back into you in 10 weeks. All right. So in case you want to ever figure out your grade, I do email progress reports out every Friday. I'll probably start this Friday unless I don't have anything in the grade books yet, in which case I'll just start it next Friday. I remember that from last term, you guys. So you'll get an email, an anonymous email. Well, it's from me, but it'll be a BCC email to the entire class mail merge that lets you know how you're doing in the class. But in case you ever want to figure your grade, I put a little grading policy page on here. It's a 10-point grading scale, so 90 and up's an A, 80 to 90 is a B, and so forth. You can figure out your grade at any point here. The reason I like this is because it kind of drives home why the optional quizzes are a good thing. So let's crunch. Let's say it's week 5. We've taken an exam, 1 exam. How many quizzes have you done by week 5? What do you think?
5.
Done all 5? Good. There might be more, but let's say you've done 5. Well, that's fantastic. And I think by week 5, there's only 1 project in the books by then. I think week 6 is the next project. All right, how we do on that exam? Out of class and in class together. How we do? Out of 100, remember. everybody at once. 89, love it. 89, quizzes out of 10. Give me 5 numbers out of 10. How about the 10s? 10, 9, and 1. Just to prove the point, just to prove the point. Just to prove the point about why optional quizzes are good. Thank you, Chris. We'll change it to an 8 in a minute. Project out of 25, what'd you do?
23.
23, love it, fantastic. Everything else will be left blank. You can leave those things blank all you want. So right now, what the computer is doing in its little virtual code is it's adding up how many points you could have totally, which if I'm doing my math correctly should be 50, 20, 175 points, I think, because you got 50 points worth of quizzes, plus 25 for projects, 75 plus 100, 175 total points. It's putting that in the denominator, and it's going to divide that into the sum of these down here. And that is your grade. That's your grade. So right now, if you would calculate, boom, you are sitting on about an 86.8, almost an 87%. Make sense? All right. Now, let's talk about these optional quizzes. It's week 4. It's week 4. You're nervous. It's all get out. Because you got 3 midterms in one class. Cat's been puking in your shoes all night. You're upset. You're very, very upset. And you walk into class, and at the very last minute, you printed the quiz, because you knew there was a quiz due on that Thursday. And you walked into class with that quiz, but you didn't really get a chance to even really work on it. But you know there's a quiz due, and you're still programmed that you have to turn quizzes in. It says quiz due, turn it in. And you turn it in and you get the 1 on it. But in this class, you have the option to simply not turn that in and make that 4 quizzes instead of 5, and then recalculate your average and look at what it is now. Now it's 91.5%. Why? Why is it a 91.5% when it was 87%? Why did you jump 4.5 percentage points?
Because you're not down 9 points.
Say that again. We'll do that one off, but why did your average change so drastically?
Divided by 6 instead of 7.
Well, ish. It's still a weighted average. This is Mike.
Yeah.
Michael, Mike. Doesn't matter. Mike, I love that. You're changing but you're also changing the numerator. But listen to what Michael said. The denominator of that fraction, whatever it was, used to be 175. Now it's 165. It went down quite a bit. It was a sizable percentage. The numerator only went down by 1 point. Since the denominator shrunk much more than the numerator did, the overall fraction has to get larger, doesn't it? Think about that numerically. There's a simpler, less mathematical reason for that. What was the 1 out of 10 compared to the rest of your grades? It's a word you learned in 243. I'm thinking you maybe did. You learned it in my class. It starts with an O. Yes, Mimi! It was an outlier. It was far away. Yes, ma'am. It was far away from your typical performance. Look at your performances. 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 89 out of 100, which is essentially 9 out of 10. 23 out of 25, 96%, 92%, whatever that ends up being. They're all pretty close to 90%, right? But then that 1 out of 10 comes along and drags your average down, as it was down 87.5. Now you take that out, it rebounds up to about 92%, which is roughly where your average should have been in the first place. That's why optional quizzes are great. Don't have time to get to it? Don't turn it in to get graded. Should you still do it when you have time? Yes. You just won't get credit for it or points for it. But just make sure you can do it and understand the topics from it. Come talk to me about it, whatever. Talk to tutors, talk to your classmates. But don't penalize yourself by turning something in half done. I guess that's what I'm getting at here. Does that kind of make sense? That's why the optional quizzes are great. Exams not optional. Sorry. Projects either. Please.
Are all the quizzes optional?
Yes, ma'am. Including the ones in class. Yeah, sometimes I'll post 2 and 3. I think next week. I might post 2 for next week just because. Because why not? You can only do 1, you can do both, you can do neither, it's your choice.
So
yeah.
if you know you did well on them, you should turn it in.
Absolutely. And how are you going to know before you turn it in if you're doing well on them?
Check with that.
This is always the challenge, right? Because I'm going to grade it and hand it back to you. Or Emily's going to grade it and hand it back to you. One of us is going to grade it and hand it back to you. Please?
In 95, we always just check with each other.
Yes, Rosie. Check with each other. Check with your neighbor. Check with your little study groups. Chances are, if you're all coming to the same conclusion and you can all explain it well, the chance of all of you being wrong is essentially 0. It's redundancy. It's redundancy. The chance of all of you being wrong is essentially 0. Like I said, the more quizzes turn in, there's a high correlation with higher quiz averages. It just happens historically that way. Cool? Makes sense? Now, watch what happens if we did turn that quiz into 10. The average went up a little bit more, didn't it? but nowhere near as impressively as it did when we removed the low grade, because 10 out of 10 is not an outlier when you're already shooting 92%. You see what I'm saying? If you got, say, like 120 out of 10 on a quiz, which you can't do, then it would be an outlier. You'd see your average jump significantly. But it is definitely, as Michael said, it's a proportion difference in the fraction. It's also just the fact that outliers pull the averages up and down. Make sense? Speaking of points, there are some ways to get extra points in this class. Quizzes are not extra credit. Let's just make sure we understand that right now. They're not extra credit because of what Michael said. When you give me a quiz, I add numbers into your numerator and denominator. That's not extra credit, is it? In order to be extra credit, where would the points have to be added? Only in the numerator. And there are ways to do that. Occasionally, when you're doing quizzes and homeworks and things like that, you'll see extra points. Sometimes I hide them in footnotes because I'm a bastard. There's one on project number 2. There's an extra point or two available for a certain little bit of research you can do online. You go find answers. There's a stat of the day blog. Let me show that to you real quick. I linked it here on the first day. Stat of the day. I've taken to putting day in quotes because I don't get to update this every day like I'd like to. What this is simply is it's a blog I hold where whenever I encounter something that's kind of cool statistically that ties at least directly or tangentially into what we're talking about in class, I put a blog post up about it and I post some questions. Some people never, ever, ever visit this page and it's okay. But every once in a while, like one of my former students sent me this great article. I think it was somebody in England. They bought half a dozen eggs at the store, brought them all home, cracked them to make a cake, and every single one had double yolks. You may have even heard this on the news if you guys listened a couple weeks ago. And if you look at the article, it's still there. I think it's still linked. It says, what are the chances of this happening? It's a 1 in a trillion. There we go. Chances about 1 in a trillion of it happening. My response, I don't think so. I don't think so. Because if it's really 1 in a trillion, that means that's the 1 in a trillion right there. A trillion is a big damn number, friends. A trillion is a big damn number. How many people on Earth? 16. Well, there you go. Wait, so you said you found 16 double yolks?
What? No.
Oh, $16 trillion. You're going national debt. This is going national debt. I thought 16 yolks proves my point. It's not that rare. But what's interesting, check this out. When you start looking at the comments, okay, a few years ago, my neighbor knowingly gave me a dozen double yolk eggs. Not so rare, we just had a dozen double yolk eggs. So all of a sudden, you read these comments, oh, it happened to me, it happened to me, it happened to me, it happened to me. Now, granted, you're not going to hear from the hundreds, if not thousands, of people that didn't have double yolk eggs. But the fact that it's happening to even more than one person, assuming they're telling the truth, kind of knocks down the 1 in a trillion bit, right? So my blog question is basically asking the question, do you think it's 1 in a trillion? Why do you think? How are they getting the number 1 in a trillion? And so forth and so on. Do you believe it should be 1 in a trillion, or should it be much lower? And this is an interesting independent, non-independent idea. You touched upon it a little bit in 243. If we have time, we'll touch it towards the end of 244. If not, it'll give you something to look at here. Or you might never look at this at all. You might never look at this blog at all. It's pure extra credit should you choose. If you choose to get in here and actually try to get some points, just make sure you read up here what this blog is and how it works. And realize there are dozens, if not scores, of archives down here. There's plenty of stuff you can get into there. And each of these months usually has more than one post in it. So by all means, get in there and have at it. I think there's a good 110 posts or something so far. And I'll keep adding to it. But you can go back if you want to get it. There's damn cats puking up money. There you go. Stupid useless animals. Anyway, so extra credit exists, but a lot of it's kind of here and there. And please, Dina, go ahead.
So when are the extra credits due?
Those are open-ended.
Oh.
The ones that are due, like in quizzes and projects, they'll be due when you turn the quiz and the project in. The stat of the day is pretty much just when you post something, I'll get an email that lets me know you posted something. I can go read what you posted. So it's open-ended as far as that goes. Okay. I get I'd say between 10 and 15 posts a term from that. So not very much, but it's there if you want it. Somebody asked me a great question yesterday. How many could you do? Theoretically, you do as many as you want. You can get there and answer every single one. But just realize the amount of time you're going to be spending doing that. Because you can't just post like, I agree with that, with my 2 points. You have to actually contribute something to the discussion. And that takes time. That takes time. So Cool? Think it's so far? Good, yeah, no, thrilling, Chris, I know. So up here, we've got the homework sheet. You guys can find that, right? Homework sheet. I'll link it. I'll make sure to link that in the actual days too for a while until you get in the habit of seeing that up there. Okay. Eventually, these days will be filled in. That quiz will be hyperlinked pretty soon. We might even have a second quiz next week. I'm thinking, why not have 2 quizzes, please, Rosie?
Did you already go over rainy day coupons?
No, I'm not going to today. I'm going to go over them starting in week 3 when they're actually applicable. I think that makes more sense. I used to give them out the first day of class, and then we'll lose them. And I talk about the first day of class, we'll forget what I'm talking about. So realize there's some nice points out there that I haven't even talked about yet that are available to you. I think it's 5% of your overall grade available as assessment and rainy day points. And we'll talk more about that when the time makes sense. Please, tell me your name again.
Kaylee.
Kaylee, thank
Yeah.
you.
So quizzes look like they're due about every Thursday.
Yes.
Is homework due every class?
Homework's going to be, it depends on what we do in class. Like, I don't know if we're going to finish estimation proportions on Thursday. If we don't, then you won't have homework for the following Tuesday. If we do, you may have homework and quizzes due the following Thursday. And I try not to do that, friends. I try not to, you'll notice at some point, I think, here, there's a project and a quiz due. I will try my damnedest not to also have homework due that day. So I'll try, if I can, I'll move stuff around to alleviate some of that. But again, because quizzes are optional, you just do the quiz. That's another way. And realizing that if I drop that quiz, I'll have some other one, some other place. But what I'll usually end up doing is just moving the quiz. I'll move that quiz down here to the next Tuesday or something like that. How often did I do that in 243? Was it wasn't that often, was it?
I don't know. 3 or 4
Occasionally?
times.
A couple times, yeah. Just whenever we got 3 things, that just seems like a bastard move to have 3 things on a day. So. Cool so far? Speaking of quizzes, Kaylee, thank you for bringing that up.
You're
Because
welcome.
there is a quiz due on Thursday, and I'm such a bastard, I haven't learned anything yet. I'm giving you a quiz. And the reason there's a quiz due is because there's this page right here. This is the rules hints page. This is what you think of when you think of a syllabus. It's like the thou shalt not page. Don't do this, please don't do this. If you do this, my cat will vomit. So it's really, really long, and it's kind of annoying to read. I'm not going to read it to you. Instead, on Thursday, the quiz that's due is a true-false on that page. So basically, it's the only non-mathematical statistical quiz you'll have in here. It's about that page. It'll make you go in and at least read the yellow boxes on that page. So will I forget anything said to you before or after class? Probably. That's why you can't just tell me things. They must be emailed to me. I mean, you can't just tell me something and expect to remember. I am such a scatterbrain. Completely scatterbrain. Any discussion I have with any of you today, I apologize. I've already forgotten 5 minutes later. Except the fact that Eric shook my hand after he coughed on himself. I won't forget that for a while. That wasn't really a conversation though. But anyway, these are all true or false questions. I haven't changed it, I don't think, since last term. So if you still have the quiz from last term, I think it's still the same one, you can just resubmit it. But check it, make sure. I may have changed it over the summer, I don't know. Cool? Fair enough? So that's your first quiz. Do you have to turn it in on Thursday? Do you have to turn it in on Thursday? No, it's optional. Should you?
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely you should. All right. So that's that. Everything else is completely optional. The enrichment page, for one. The enrichment page, this is a series of links that I've put together. I've got a very large set of justifications. Every once in a blue moon, in this class particular, I'll say, and if you want to know why, go to the enrichment page. For example, this magical number 0.25 will pop up in class. Maybe on Thursday, probably on Tuesday, if not on Thursday. When you're calculating how large a sample you should draw to do a certain study, this number 0.25 shows up. Why is there a 0.25 there? Well, what I've learned is I shouldn't justify that in class. Because 10% of the class is interested in it. 90% of the class is not as interested in it. And 50% of that 90% doesn't want to see anything that I'm doing about that. But I still think it's worth understanding. So what I'll do is I'll record a YouTube video, post that, and there's also a justification of it right here. And I'll link the video in there after I get it made, things like that. So just realize there's a lot of justifications for stuff. If you're in the math, if you're kind of like mathy and you want to know why certain things work, was anybody troubled in 243 when Donna or I told you that the average of the standard verbal was 0, the bell curve centers on 0 plus or minus 1? That upset anybody? Or did it make you wonder, why? Is it good? If you wonder why, it's right there. Hang on a second, here it is. It's right there. That's why it's 0, 1. You ever wonder why the radical NPQ is the standard deviation of the binomial?
All the time.
All the time. At night, because of it. It's all there waiting for you if you need to see it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add YouTube videos as I have the time to record them, so you have another way of looking at it too. I was always interested in this kind of stuff when I was studying, because my prof would say things like, well, this is the maximum likelihood estimator. I'm like, how do you know? Why couldn't this be the maximum? And then the response was inevitably, because I've been teaching this for 30 years. That's the worst possible reason I can have for justification. So I got tired of that, so I started justifying it myself. And then I didn't want to throw it away, so I figured I'd say, you're my students. And you might never look at them, and that's okay. But there it is if you want it. Everything else on here is outcomes for the course. This is what you would give a school if you're trying to get credit for this course. You'd give them this paper, or you just email me at that point, and I help you get credit for it if I can. But I have to have this on syllabus. And then this is the lawyer talk. This is the ADA, the student rights responsibilities, the insurance policy, equal opportunity education, non-discrimination, and so forth. That, my friends, is what we call syllabus. How are you feeling? Feel all right? I'm going to hit pause here and then start her up again. Any questions you guys have?